So, Flash Thompson in the MCU has been obviously well known in his role in Homecoming and obviously Far From Home, and we're obviously going to see him a bit more in No Way Home. Obviously, as we know, Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man universe, I should say, in the comics, he is a very iconic character, maybe more towards Peter Parker, as we know. He is more of Peter Parker's bully in high school. That's what we do know in the comics. But there is a lot more to his backstory, as if you've read the comics on Flash Thompson, and if you've obviously seen some shows with Flash Thompson in, obviously with Agent Venom, which is going to be today's topic, and how that could happen on him becoming Agent Venom. So if you do enjoy this video today, please like and subscribe, and yeah, let's get into it. So, in Flash Thompson, obviously an amazing character. Obviously, as we know in the comics, he helps Peter Parker in a way develop as a character, as we know, obviously as Spider-Man. And in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Flash Thompson, in Homecoming, obviously the Spider-Man movies that we recently, we know that obviously we do at the start see Peter getting not really bullied, but made fun of by Flash Thompson. But as we know in Far From Home and in Homecoming as well, Flash Thompson is a very big fan of Spider-Man, and this does base off the comics as well, and I do believe that they will base Flash Thompson's MCU story off the comics, and I really hope they do, because that would be very cool to see. Maybe not off by like word by word or whatever by the comics into the MCU, but I do hope a story like that does occur in the future. Obviously, as we know, there is going to be another trilogy for Spider-Man, so it would be cool to see Flash Thompson as Agent Venom in that, and it does make sense, and it obviously would be cool to see, and because it would obviously, like I just said, make sense, because in the comics, Flash Thompson, he does become really good friends with Peter Parker actually near the end, and he does everything he wants. Obviously, he becomes a soldier, and he goes to war with his fellow comrades from his fellow soldiers from school, and he obviously goes out with his fellow soldier or his commander, and his commander gets shot, and he sacrifices his legs he puts his life on the line for his commander and saves his life. But in the process, Flash Thompson does lose his legs in the process of saving his commander, and obviously he does get told that he will never be able to walk again. He has to get both of his legs amputated, and that's in the comics. And yeah, he wants to be a hero, and that's what he did. He saved his commander and learned to be more of a good character, as we see in the comics, and as he does become good friends after that with Peter Parker, and a bit before that as well, he becomes really good friends with Peter Parker. And I think this could happen in the future. Obviously, Flash Thompson tries his best to do everything he can he tries every method to try and walk again and do what he wants to do in life, and that's save people and help people, but obviously it doesn't work. And then one day comes along, there is a bunch of symbiotes that is an experiment that they wanted to do on, and Flash, and the first guy that did it was killed, and as he couldn't hold the symbiote. And obviously, we've seen that in obviously the Venom franchise. A lot of people can't hold the symbiote, and in the comics we see Flash Thompson, he does get a hold of the symbiote, as we know, Venom, and he does obviously control it, and in the process, the Venom does regenerates his legs again, gives him his legs back, and this is where Flash Thompson becomes Agent Venom. And obviously, as we know in the comics, Agent Venom is a really cool character, and I do want to see him in the future in the MCU, as I think he's an amazing character to go off, especially with a future of another trilogy with Spider-Man, obviously with Tom Holland, and I do think it'll be very cool to see. And I think the story works perfectly as well, with Flash Thompson in the MCU, like this sort of him wanting to be a hero and be like Spider-Man, as obviously, as we know, Flash Thompson does bully Spider-Man a lot, as we see in all three franchises of the Spider-Man film, or all three of the Spider-Man films, or whatever you want to call them, the trilogies. That we do know that Flash Thompson is a recurring theme of a bully to Peter Parker, and I do think Andrew Garfield is the worst, but either way, I do think they're all just as each other, and I do think that the MCU has a really good opportunity to make Flash Thompson Agent Venom, because that is an opportunity that obviously don't want to pass by. Obviously, as everyone knows, Agent Venom is such a cool character, and his abilities as well obviously goes off of his look as well. I think his appearance is very cool in the comics, and not only the comics but the shows that we see Agent Venom in as well. I think some of his appearances he has, obviously it does change over time in the shows and obviously the comics that we see him in. But I do like the way Flash Thompson does become Agent Venom in the comics, and I really would love to see him this happen obviously in the MCU, obviously being carried over to Flash Thompson. Now I don't think it's going to happen in No Way Home. It would just be too much to barge in. Obviously, as we know, as we know about the leaked post-credit scene, it could obviously latch on the Flash Thompson, the symbiote, but I think there's a lot more opportunities that they could take with that, with obviously that symbiote being left there. Obviously with him the bit of the symbiote, attaching to obviously Peter Parker, and obviously as we've seen in the past with Tobey Maguire, the symbiote attaching to Spider-Man, and yeah, I just think that would be cool to see first, and then obviously going on to Peter Parker, as we know that in some of the Spider-Man shows that the symbiote Flash Thompson's story isn't the same in the shows as it is in the comics. Obviously in the shows, there is one in Ultimate Spider-Man, I think it is, the symbiote does attach obviously to Spider-Man, and then the symbiote leaves Spider-Man and then goes to Flash Thompson, and then the symbiote wants Peter back, and obviously it leaves Flash, and then Flash needs it back because he obviously wants to be with like Agent Venom, or Venom, and yeah, that would obviously, it's a lot different to what the comics is, and I'd rather see the comic version of Flash Thompson's story be carried over to the MCU. I just think it's a really cool story arc to follow in the MCU as Flash Thompson, and I would really love to see it because I think it's an amazing story to have, and I think it would be a very missed opportunity if they don't do it. Tell us what you think about this theory of obviously Flash Thompson becoming Agent Venom in the MCU. I think it would be very cool to see, as obviously Agent Venom, everyone loves Agent Venom, well, everyone loves Venom as it is, so having Agent Venom in the MCU as well would just be absolutely crazy, and I think every Marvel fan would love it, and Spider-Man fan would love it as well. So if you did enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, and tell us how you feel about Agent Venom. I hope you had a good day, and goodbye.